What up YouTube, Salvador Brigman here. Welcome back to the Life of Freedom channel. And on this channel, we talk about online business, we talk about blogging, we talk about podcasting, really how do you work at home and create a business and a life that you love. And today I wanna go through a very simple podcasting setup. So if you wanna get started with podcasting, you wanna create your own informational style show, you wanna be an expert, you wanna bring on guests that you can interview, or if you wanna create an entertaining show, where you have on guests, you're riffing about news or events or something like that. You want to do some kind of a show like that. This episode is going to show you a very simple podcasting setup. And now this is not for you if you want to have a $500, $1,000, $2,000 setup. If you want to have a super high quality microphone, a mixer, and all this other equipment, this is not for you. This is for you if you want to get started quickly and you really want to get those episodes out there so you can actually decide, is this something you want to go forward with? Is this something you want to spend more time, attention, and money on? And this is the same setup that I use for my podcast. So my podcast, it's been downloaded more than 150,000 times, which is insane. That's mind-boggling. Imagining people around the world have heard my voice from this very simple setup of me, a microphone, and a laptop. That is insane. That's just a tremendous amount of leverage, if you will. So I want to show you how you can do this. And also, if you go into my channel, you can see some of the other videos that I have on podcasting. I also have a book out there on Amazon called Podcasting for Beginners. So this goes more in depth into the equipment, goes more in depth into marketing your podcast, and it also goes more in depth into things like how do you actually style, how do you actually create the idea for a show, a successful show. There's a lot to be said for that. So you can check that out on Amazon. I'll also link it up in the description of this YouTube video. So the first thing I want to say is you need to identify how you want to interview your guests. So if you're doing an in-person interview, of course you would need two microphones. You need to have someone on their lapel, a microphone that way, and you can record either that way or a headset. There are a lot of different ways to record in person. But because you're doing a simple setup, usually you're going to be interviewing your guests via online. Could be via Skype, could be something like, Zencaster or Zoom or all these different things. You need to have an application where you can interface and talk with your guests and record the podcast that way. So what I use Skype and I use the Ecamm call recorder. So the Ecamm call recorder is a really nifty application that actually is like an add-on to Skype. So every time I log onto Skype, if I want to record a phone call or a video call with the guest, I just hit record and it will record our voices, and I can split it down into one audio track or two audio tracks, one of me and one of the guest. And that makes it really easy because then I quite literally just import that into GarageBand and I have the podcast right there. I just got to add an intro, sponsorship, and a conclusion, and we're ready to go. So I would recommend either looking into Skype, one of those other applications out there to actually record the voice of the listener. And I use Ecamm call recorder, and you can check that out as a link in the description of this YouTube video. So once you actually have that application, a way to record voice, next you need a microphone. So the microphone, there's a lot of debate here around the best podcasting microphones. I go into a bunch of them at different price points in my book, in my guide. But the one I'm going to be recommending today, actually we can recommend two of them. So the first one is the microphone that I use. And this is the Blue Yeti. So the Blue Yeti, it's available on Amazon. It's about $100, and it's a very high quality microphone. You can do things, you can control the gain via the microphone. You can control the volume, the volume you hear when you have your earbuds in. You can also record the direction in which you want the microphone to record sound. So it can record sound coming from here, from all around, just one angle. You can use this microphone in a lot of different ways. So I think you get a lot for the value that you invest. And it's also USB compatible, which you need if you want to use your laptop to record your guests and you want to use Skype. You need a USB compatible microphone. So I recommend looking into the Blue Yeti. On the downside, the Blue Yeti is a little bit more of a sensitive microphone, so you need to be aware of your sound environment, making sure that if you have like, I don't know, droning sound or your computer or someone else in another room, it might pick them up. But you can also use the omnidirectional different things to make it so that it's only recording sound from one angle. And that way you can sort of cut down on some of the extraneous sounds in the environment. You can also change the gain. The gain is also kind of like the sensitivity of the microphone, so you can turn that way down if you don't want it to pick up sounds in the environment, someone else talking in another room or something like that. So the next one that I want to mention is the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 microphone. This is a USB compatible microphone, comes in at about $69, $70, and it's used by many different podcasters out there. So a lot of people like Tim Ferriss, he's a very well-known podcaster, wrote the 4-Hour Work Week. He also has the Tim Ferriss Show, has a blog. He, for a long time, was using the ATR 2100 microphone. So this is a very solid piece of equipment. It's a lower price microphone. You get a lot for it. It's a very good sounding microphone. Really, you don't need anything else if you're a beginner. So I would either recommend going with the Blue Yeti or the one I just mentioned, and I will link them up in the description of this YouTube video. So the three components, the final component that you're going to need, for the podcasting setup, you have the app, the way you're recording and interfacing with your guests. Number 2, you have the equipment, the microphone. Number 3 is how do you get the word out there about the podcast? How do you publish it on all of these different mediums? Like how do you publish it on iTunes? How do you publish it on SoundCloud? How do you publish it on Stitcher? On your own website? You need a podcasting host. So this is kind of like completing the cycle here. This is the last thing that you really need to get started from the technical perspective of podcasting. So what I use is the host Libsyn to host my podcast. Now, Libsyn is one of the longer running hosts out there to actually host podcasts. These guys are awesome. They give you statistics. They give you all the tools you need to upload the show. A lot of information that basically you can use to tailor your show. So like where downloads are coming from which devices, all this kind of stuff you get with Libsyn. So I would recommend looking into Libsyn. There are other podcasting hosts out there. You can use SoundCloud, you can use Blueberry, you can use, what's the other one? I'm sort of escaping my mind right now. There's like a bunch of different ones. I'll link to one of the articles that I have on some of the other podcasting ghosts out there. Buzzsprout, that's another one. So there are a ton of hosts. The reason I went with Libsyn is just because it's very dependable. I knew what I was getting. A lot of other podcasters use them. They've been around for a really long time. So I figured these guys have been around for a while. I want a host that works. And now I've been hosting my show with them for about 2 years. And I haven't really had any issues whatsoever. So I totally recommend these guys. Initially, their graphical user interface wasn't that great, but they've slowly been improving that. They have a better podcast player now. They've been upgrading their show stats so it looks better and more professional. So I think that these guys have been improving a lot there, but I will also link to an article which goes through some of the other podcasting hosts out there. So there's a ton more information when it comes to podcasting. You have to know not only the equipment, you also have to know how to structure a show. You have to know, should you promote your show this way or that way? How do you go out there and get downloads? How do you get people to listen to what you have to say? How do you get them to tune in? Like to a 30-minute, to a 40-minute, to a 60-minute long show. How do you get them to do that? It's kind of, when you first get started, it's very cringeworthy. You sound very monotone. You might sound very robotic. You might sound like I did. You're just like shouting and talking in infomercial style voice, thinking that that's going to command attention, and it doesn't. At the end of the day, you need to discover your authentic voice. If we were just talking in person here, like you have a chair here or there's a couch here, and you were asking me stuff about podcasting, I'd speak to you very similarly to how I am now. I might be more relaxed because I'm not talking to a camera, I'm actually talking to a human being. But I definitely would just sound the same. Like, this is my voice. This is how I sound. This is how I sound on a regular basis. I'm just talking to my friend. So you want to discover your authentic voice. But there are also other things that you need to realize when it comes to podcasting. Like, yes, you want to sound authentic and transparent and be yourself. You also have to understand some of these other things when it comes to podcasting, like how do you actually intrigue a guest? How do you get sponsors? How do you get people to pay attention to you? You have to know these other things that go into podcasting, and I talk all about that in my guide, A Beginner's Guide to Podcasting, Podcasting for Beginners. So if you want to check out that guide on Amazon, I will link it up in the description of this YouTube video. It's Podcasting for Beginners. You can also put that into the description on Amazon. And it talks about how to set up, how to create, how to market, and how to monetize your podcast. If you're not ready to grab a copy of that, you can also go into some of the other videos I have on this channel on podcasting, which talks about my own setup, which talks about advice that I have for people just getting started. It goes into a lot of other things when you're just getting started now with podcasting. But again, my name is Sal. Thank you for joining me on this YouTube video. Hope you check out some of my other videos on this channel. Hit subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you next time.